Okay, that's an easier question to answer. It's very difficult to certify a restaurant. That doesn't mean you cannot certify a restaurant. It just means it's very challenging, and a person has to do a very good job in doing so. The reason is because a restaurant is a very fluid environment. So if you have a chef, they may have certain ingredients that they like, and then that chef changes. You have a new chef, and they're going to start introducing new ingredients. So you don't have like a registered formulation that you stick to. It's just the chef is creative. So that creates a fluid environment. That's one challenge. Another challenge of restaurants, a lot of restaurants do catering. So when they're doing catering, you have off-site parties. Off-site parties create their own challenges. Are they bringing equipment, or it's just drop off with disposable? That's a whole world for itself in terms of monitoring it. Requires a lot of, I would say, a lot of cooperation and a lot of a proper understanding of the nuances of the industry. In addition, many restaurants use a lot of fresh vegetables that need to be checked for insects, and that's a tedious process, something which the mashgiach is tasked to do. And you cannot operate a restaurant that needs a mashgiach to meet it without the mashgiach. So there's so many moving parts that have to be, the gears all have to be in place for it to work. Otherwise, you're going to have a problem. That's one thing I would mention. Another thing that I would mention is that some products are certified kosher only under special production. So they'll have, we'll kosher equipment, we'll bring down a mashgiach, we'll run it for a week. It also involves a lot of work because you have to change the ongoing setup of the factory to accommodate the needs. So if they're doing kosher Pesach, or if they're doing Cholav Yisrael, these are the kind of things that we would do to be able to create the environment we need to be able to produce that food. It's very, very, food production is very complex. It's very systemic because they have to be systemic to be able to make money, but it's still complex. There's a lot of nuances and a lot of things happening, and you cannot let down your guard even 1 second. Because if you do, then something can change and it can be a problem. I'll give you an example. When I first started working in kosher about 23 years ago, I was sent to a chocolate factory in Manhattan. Wonderful assignment. Can you imagine the zchus of working and being surrounded by chocolate? The aura, the whiff, it's intoxicating. Sometimes they even give you some samples. I don't ask, but if they give you, just make sure that it came on spec. It's not off spec. Anyway, so we're making a Pesach production in this factory. So there was a mashgiach tamidi, and I was the mashgiach at that time. They're running parve dark chocolate. And there's many different kind of chocolate products, but in my opinion, listen, just giving you my opinion, there's an expression in the Torah, we don't argue about taste and opinions. One of the best chocolate products in the world are chocolate that's enrobed in a nut, like chocolate covered nuts that's already roasted, or chocolate covered cookies. I mean, that's because the mouthfeel, the explosion, it's like a whole verbringen happening inside the mouth while you're eating the product. If you just have a piece of chocolate, okay, so it's sweet, it's very nice, but it's a new dimension, it's a new experience. So that's what they were making. And they were making very similar products that were not Pesachdik right nearby. Now, I was checking, I was standing and watching. So all's fine and good. But after a while, if you're a mashgiach tamidi, you realize I'm there for 8 hours. So I may have to, leave for a minute to use the restroom after 4 hours, whatever. So I said to them, I'm really not comfortable with you manufacturing the exact same product that I'm making for Pesach and the exact same product that's not for Pesach right near each other, because somebody could mistakenly take a bucket and switch it. I would never know the difference. You look exactly the same. So therefore, I'm asking you to finish off your non-Pesach product and then move to a non-compatible product. Move to a product that has a different color, a different taste profile, different flavor. Therefore, we're not worried about anyone making any mistakes. So they agreed. But the point I want to say is that even though I was mashgiach tamidi in the factory watching it happen, it's still not enough. You also have to set boundaries and parameters of safe operating procedures. It's never a good idea to operate what we call compatible products side by side. It's asking for trouble. So for example, when they pack meat, kosher meat. It's the same thing in any industry. They'll pack kosher meat. They won't pack non-kosher meat, on two lines side by side. It's too dangerous. They'll allow white meat that's not kosher to be packed on a line over here, and 10 feet away, you can pack kosher meat that's red on the other side because they're non-compatible. It's not going to happen. So you have to have a system in place to ensure that no one's going to come to make a mistake. Then I'll tell you another story. But then you let me know if you want me to study inside afterwards. I don't want to lead this in the direction. I had a customer who used to manufacture very high-end cakes. Very high-end cakes. Mishuggah, crazy. The only problem is that I didn't own the business. I'm kidding. No, they would sell cakes for like $5,000 or $10,000, $20,000. There would be 5-layer tiers, themes, mices. So when Bill Clinton was president, or after he was president, they made a cake for his 50th birthday. This is like the world famous, chocolate cake companies in Manhattan. There's like 2 or 3 of them, the boutique ones. And so we certified some of these products. People would make wedding cakes for $5,000. I don't know. They don't even eat them. They just take pictures, so they can have that. It's crazy. Yeah, it's like and they ship it with mice. They protect it. It's crazy what goes on there. So we see interesting things. Anyway, that's what happens. Any other questions?
Best food you've gotten for free working in Kashrut.
Okay, so let me answer that. Rabbi Levi, my father-in-law, blessed memory, had a policy that we don't take food for free. Now, if I'm in a factory and they want you to sample something to taste it in the spot, that's not called taking food for free per se. I'm tasting it. But I'm not going to take home food from there. He did allow us to buy it wholesale, which is fine. Paying for it, that's what they sell to their customers for. But it's not really appropriate to take for free. I once had a story where although I don't certify restaurants, I was once involved, like 22 years ago, a colleague of mine asked me to help him go down to a restaurant. The owner of the restaurant was a Sephardi fellow who was traditional, but not fully from. We had a mashgiach tamidi. The kashrut was okay, was stable, but the owner of the restaurant was very had a volatile temper. It was not a good environment. Like, there was we tried to go down to sort it out. So the owner of the restaurant, we went there like 4:00 in the afternoon. We spent a few hours in the restaurant, and he offered us supper. I wasn't sure what to do. We don't take food for free, meaning to eat supper in his restaurant. So I called up my father-in-law, and he said to me, "You're allowed to have it because you're visiting his restaurant. You're like his guest. He's allowed to serve you. Don't take any food out. But this is part of his feeling of, he wants to be able to be gracious. Anyway, so that's kind of how we do it. Any other questions?
Yeah, have you ever certified like companies that do parties, like they don't have like a set location, they go around?
We do that with caterers, but it's very, very time consuming. It's very hard. You have to have a system where you're tracking every part of that they make. Could be done. It's hard.
Wow.
Okay, can I tell another story? I certify a few companies that do maple syrup. Maple syrup, of course, is in the usually in the upper near Canada, near the border of Canada, and upstate New York, and Pennsylvania.
Is it harder? Is it easier to fashion?
Yes, it is easier. Maple syrup is a pretty stable product in terms of kashrut. There are a couple of issues you have to look out for, but I had an experience which kind of freaked me out. So when I first started certifying maple syrup from one customer, the way it works is that they collect the sap from the trees. Usually it's on a mountain. It's got to be sloped because you tap the tree, they put a needle into the tree, they run this tubing into the tree, and then they flow the sap through gravity down to a building that's called a sugar house that collects all the sap. And then they boil down the sap. It gets condensed to a very high percentage, very, very thick. That's your maple syrup, hence the cost. Maple syrup is very expensive. So I went to see this factory, the sugar house, where they actually do the bottling. There's two parts. There's the sugar house and the bottling company. The bottling company is in a regular residential area or production area. But then he says to me, Rabbi, come, we'll go to see the sugar house. I'd never been to a sugar house before. I knew what it was. And he drove into the forest with me, with his pickup truck. And we get into the middle of the woods. I'm like, this is really freaking. It's like, wow, this is like, I never had this experience before. So he takes me in the sugar house, shows me the machinery. And they use an oil, by the way. When you boil the maple syrup, it'll start to foam up. So you have to put an ingredient that's called an anti-foam that's going to eat up the foam. If it's not certified, they can use even a little bit of pig to eat up the foam, a little fat, non-kosher fat. It's going to be nullified over 1,000. So it's still going to be kosher, the product. But if you're certifying, you have to make sure that they're going to use a kosher oil. And I said to him, I said to the guy, oh, what's his first name? I forgot. I still certify him. Got his first name. I said, don't you have like any animals around? He's like, yeah, Rabbi, we got bears here all the time. I'm like, holy moly, what's gonna be? He says, yeah, sometimes they chew on the line. He's like a warrior, he's like an outdoorsy guy. I'm like, anyway, that was kind of freaky. But that's what happens out there. They do chew on the lines because they want the sugar. So it's kind of interesting. So it's very cute. And I went to another place about a year ago with him up the mountain. And now I carry mace on me. So I don't know if it's going to help me if I have to get run into a bear, but at least I feel a little bit more protected. What's that?
You need loud sounds.
Loud sounds, yeah. Yeah, he says they don't bother you. I'm like, yeah, but I'd rather not kind of figure that out. Like, I'd rather not engage with them. That's what he told me. No, they don't bother you, Rabbi. Yeah, I've seen bears right near me. I'm like, anyway, yeah, that's what it was. But it's funny. And it's also interesting. You learn all kinds of interesting things. The wood that they have to chop down in that area, like in that forest, there's certain kind of lumber, certain kind of trees. I forgot the name of the tree, but those trees are the kind of trees that they use to make baseball bats. So they chop down the lumber to clear the whole area to make roads and all that, and then they sell off that wood to companies that turn into to baseball bats. That is the story. You want to hear some more stories?
What would you say is the biggest company that you certified?
So I used to take care of a company that manufactures flavors. I now gave it over to a colleague of mine. They would manufacture a few hundred products every day, and they had about probably 30 or 40,000 products in their database. Probably like 20,000 ingredients, and of those ingredients, they would make like 40,000 products. And that company was literally a city for itself. It's the whole compound, the whole complex was like the size of a quarter of Crown Heights. Huge place. And they give bicycles at night to ride around the factory to get from place to place. I mean, literally from walking from one end of the factory to my car was a 10-minute walk. So I got a lot of exercise just working in the factory. I had to walk around a lot. It was an interesting experience. Every company is unique. And the key, in my opinion, to be successful in this industry, for the rabbi, is for the rabbi to understand the customer and understand the industry that they're operating in. To really understand where they're coming from. Then you can service them properly and do the kashrut properly. Yeah. Any other questions? No? Okay. We can go inside if you want.
Actually, I do have one question.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone doesn't want questions, then I don't ask it. Okay. What's the deal with strawberries? I was raised always just like checking, rinsing, and done. But then all of a sudden, I hear that people like go crazy by like.
See, one of the right.
Soap water.
Yeah, I understand. So. I want to answer you with a story. I will answer the question, but I want to give some context to the question. My father, of blessed memory, was a Baal Shuvah, came to the Rebbe in 1962. and he was a famous scientist. He was the Rebbe scientist in a lot of areas. One of the Rebbe's collection of scientists, so to speak, and he had a very close relationship with the Rebbe. So a friend of mine said that your father was a very balanced person. He was very devoted to the Rebbe, very devoted to Yiddishkeit, but at the same time, he was not like extreme in his conduct, in his Judaism. He was just very balanced and very real, very connected. And I think that's really the goal for all of us, to be able to have a standard of our kashrut, of our Yiddishkeit, that's very real and very strong and very solid, but it's also balanced, not something that's too extreme in any way. So with regards to the strawberries, in the last couple of decades, there's much more awareness on behalf of consumers about bug issues in various produce. And there's all kinds of guides, there's tutorials, there's videos online. You can get everything you need. So consumers can do a thorough job in taking care of bug-sensitive vegetables. The strawberries is a unique fruit because it's the only fruit that has the webbing on the outside. It's got a whole web on the outside. So which means it's not a smooth surface on the outside, which means that there's room for the bugs to hide, which creates a challenge in cleaning them. Now, this gets into a whole discussion in halacha. Do we have to be concerned about a bug that I can't see? The answer is that if it's a bug that can only be seen through a microscope, when it's moving, you can only see it through a microscope, you don't have to worry about it. However, a bug that you can see is an entity, but you can't see it as a bug, but you'll notice it's a bug if it's moving, is called something you can see. So how you define not something you can see or could see is very, very important. Again, you define it as something, if I can see something and I have to use a microscope to determine it's a bug, I still saw it. If I can't see the thing at all, and I need a microscope to see that there's something, then you don't have to worry about that. So the kind of bugs that are on strawberries, you can see that there's something, but you can't see what they are, sometimes without an instrument or without them moving. It's hard to believe because they're so small and, it's like hard to believe, but they camp out there. So I did some experiments with some expert rabbis. First of all, I don't like bugs, so I'm not into the whole subject. I mean, I know about it, but I'm careful and all that, but I'm not into bugs. Some people love bugs. But you know the story, when I was a counselor in Chicago, this is in 1987, I think it was a pizza shop. And those days, people relied on the fact that they would spray all kinds of pesticides on iceberg lettuce. They didn't check their lettuce, but just iceberg anyway. So luckily they had what to rely on because they used strong pesticides. There was a sign on the window, written on a paper plate, mind you. We don't check our lettuce, don't bug us. Some people don't like this stuff. Anyway, so I had a meeting with this rabbi, who's an expert on bugs. He took a paper towel, double, 2 sheets of paper towel, put it on the table, took a bunch of strawberries and bounced them on this paper towel. And lo and behold, after a couple minutes, the paper towel started moving. I don't mean that. I mean that things started moving on the towel and there were bugs there. And I saw what he meant. So therefore, why am I saying that's why people thoroughly wash strawberries? Some people only eat strawberries in a smoothie format. I have some in here, by the way. I'm sorry for drinking in public, but I'm a busy guy, whatever. It's on my breakfast, you'll excuse me. But that's the whole background behind it. So something should be done to wash strawberries well. At that point, you've done what you can in terms of addressing the issue, and then you can have it. And then there's levels. Some people are a little bit more careful than others, but there should be a basic system in place at least.
So what is the most basic way to clean the strawberry?
So you cut off the top, and then you soak it basically like in either a veggie wash or a soap solution or a salt water solution. a couple of times and then like rub it, rinse it. It's basically, it takes a couple minutes, like 6 minutes, 3 minutes a piece. That's what should be done. The Chassidim have processes they write about on their website. Some people are not aware. There are some fruits that are very, very bug sensitive, like raspberries and blackberries, because there's cavities there. So to eat those whole are very, very tricky.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this also depends like of the country, because like I'm from Brazil, and in Brazil we cannot eat like even like broccoli and put it in the water and whatever. Like the rabbis said that we cannot eat. It's the same thing like with broccoli and cauliflower in Brazil. Like we cannot eat. Like it doesn't matter like what
You cannot eat it whole. You need it on pureed.
So I don't know.
It does depend on the country. In a place like Eretz Yisrael, the bug issue is much more pronounced because it's a warmer climate. Brazil is also a warm climate. So their bug issues are much more severe. So let's say, for example, in Israel, you have to check rice bugs. Here in America, you don't have to. In Brazil, you have to. So it does depend on the climate, the country. You have to see what's behind the whole issue. In America, if you get a fresh bag of rice or a fresh bag of flour even, and you store it properly and you rotate stock, you're not mechuyev to check it. It's possible once in a while you're going to find something, but it's a very minute amount, and it's at a level where halachically is no requirement to check for it. Yeah.
You need to like use like the veggie soap or whatever,
For what?
anything.
So you don't need to use veggie soap. It's an easy method to use veggie soap or veggie wash. Some people use regular soap, which has a taste which is not really savory. It kind of leaves an aftertaste. You could use salt water also.
But like, I feel like they didn't use that back in the day.
They didn't. That's right. So you're right. I don't have an answer for you because back in the day they maybe use salt water, but they didn't use any other kind of soaps and the like. You're right. And like my mentor, Rabbi Stigman, who I spoke about last week, he said, it's not Torah Sinai. This whole system of the book, the veggie guide, it's not Torah Sinai. It's that Heckscher's methodology of how to deal with the issue. There are other valid methodologies, but the methodology is also crafted carefully because it takes into account the kind of lifestyle that we lead and all today's challenges. So in the olden days, by the way, just to give you the other side of the coin, people were much more used to tedious activity. We didn't live in a disposable society a few hundred years ago. Everything was reused, everything was washed, everything was prepared from scratch. So therefore, the whole idea of checking for vegetables and bugs, that tedious activity, everyone was conditioned to that lifestyle. Today, when everything is fast, disposable, we have to go out of that mindset to be able to do this, so it's more difficult. So there are some Rabbanim that say that we have to work on systems instead, because actually get that mindset is much harder than it was then. So you have to look at it from that perspective as well, which I think is a very valid point. Anyway.
Really, like most strawberries you say will have bugs? Or is it possible that?
Some don't, but they have the amount of bugs that's at a level where it's considered to be a common thing. I always feel bad, I told my daughter-in-law, I said, I kind of feel bad. You never married into I'm saying it's jokingly, but married to this family, suddenly you find out we do this, we don't do that, But no, we try to keep it balanced, but there's a way to do it. The point is that we should be able to do it in a way that we can, handle it responsibly.
You serve vegetable and matzah.
The OK does. I'm not personally involved with it. Yes, we actually do matzah, shmar matzah out of Ukraine. I don't know what's going to happen with it this year, but we do that every year for the past several years. Any other questions? No? Okay. You're supposed to say to the rabbi, what do you do when you're facing a very difficult situation? When you're being tested or something happens in a factory? What do you do then? Oh, rhetorical question.
You have a really bad situation in the factory, what do you do?
I pull out a chocolate bar. No, no,
Alright,
no, well, I might do that too, but
fair.
what I do is, again, this is what I was taught from my mentor. You never leave a factory. You're not allowed to leave if you have a problem. You have to figure out the issue and get some help. You can speak to other people to get advice, but you must get down to the bottom of the issue and set up a system to resolve the problem. Things do happen. We live in a world where there are issues. And it has happened to me a few times when I was in a factory. I had to stay there for several hours. One time I even had to stay overnight. I had to take a hotel because I was so heavily delayed. Usually it does not happen, but if you have to be prepared that things can, you have to expect the unexpected to some degree.
What's the worst thing that's happened in the factory?
So I actually had a situation at factory once where I watched two senior employees. One of them was plant manager, the other one was I don't know if he was a manager, so they were getting into a heated fight. I was like, get me out of here. But I had to be on premises because I had to supervise the Kashrut. And I was very concerned that it was going to kind of, escalate to a place that we didn't want it to go. But thank God somehow it didn't go that far. Baruch Hashem, for the most part, we've had, positive experiences, but I've had experiences where I was in a factory and they brought in an ingredient that they thought was okay, wasn't okay. I had to stop it. Sometimes I had the good fortune that they didn't end up using it for yet. Sometimes they did end up using it. I had to quarantine the product that was used. There has to be a sense of actually dealing with something from beginning to end. The quality of a hechsher is determined not by the fact that they have challenges. Everyone has challenges, but what they do to prevent challenges and how they respond to challenges. That's where you get into quality. And in order to do this work properly, a person has to be a real conscious professional, and it takes years of training. I did not understand the food industry until I was working in it for about 5 or 6 years. I mean, I did my work, but I didn't understand it in its full, I didn't have that full scope in terms of a picture of how it operates.
It's the craziest question you've ever been asked.
Why do you charge us like this? No, no, that's a question. I'll tell you, I did get a crazy question once from somebody. There was a customer of mine who mislabeled a product. They were given a fine by the state because they violated the kosher laws. The fine was like $2,500. Or it was like $2,000, something like that. And they were complaining to me that it's so much money, and they made the mistake, not me. So I said to them, I said, first of all, you realize that you're giving me a compliment. He says, what do you mean? I said, well, first of all, we don't charge you too much. Because if that's a lot of money, I said, we're giving you a whole service here, kosher. And had you followed our program and our protocols, this wouldn't have happened. It only happened because someone in the company did not follow procedure, which we set up. So I said, you see how much we're here to protect you. And he really appreciated that because I gave him the perspective that every system, my father-in-law told me, everything that we do for the customer, we set up for them is for their benefit. It's to protect them. I have another story to share with you. I got a call from a mashkiach in a factory, and he says to me that the company that he's working in says that they found a dairy chocolate, one chocolate mixed into a parv product. It's a problem, Kashrut's problem.
How does that happen?
So that's the question, how did it happen? And why did it happen? We have to, study it. So we started studying it. So he said to me that the company, it was in one product. He said to me, the company is saying to him that their supplier must have messed up, meaning that their supplier sends them 30-pound boxes of parv chocolate and dairy chocolate, separate boxes, separate product codes, and they must have mixed it up. So on the phone, I was 40 miles away, 30 miles away from the mashgiach, 20 miles away, a different state. I said, no, it's not what happened. I said, the company you're working in just switched from hand packing to packing by machine through vertical control feeders, like, baggers and all that, where you dump it on top and it runs through, bucket elevators and all that. I said, if they just started operating this machine, most likely they're not that experienced in cleaning it. They ran dairy production. One piece of dairy chocolate got stuck to the machine because if it's a little moisture, chocolate will stick to the environment. And then when you ran parv, it got dislodged. I said, check that. They checked it and I was right. And later he said, how'd you know? I said, it's experience. It's all about experience. I said, as soon as they switch over to a different methodology of packing, there's going to be a learning curve. It's unfortunate, but we were able to identify exactly what happened, make sure it was not going to happen again, and we solved the problem. So this is what has to happen.
I have a question. You said that they use the same machine for dairy and
Yeah.
water? You could do that because it's cold.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's cold, dry, not liquid, but you have to clean in between with a proper CFP. Everyone does that. It's allowed according to halacha.
Was it a cholesterol place?
No. It was
So
part
even
of
if
it.
something wasn't cholesterol.
As long as it's dry and it's cold, it's
Yeah.
not sitting, it's not liquid, no coverage issue, it's cold. It's not considered to be any status. It still remains neutral.
Okay.
That's what happens.
So was the temperature on that like dairy equipment or no?
No, the vessel equipment's not even considered dairy equipment because it's all cold. You just have to clean it.
So like when it has like OUDE, like dairy equipment.
That means it's a hot process.
The hot process.
Yeah, okay,
They use
DE.
the same kilo.
Yes,
So you still give out to eat.
we certify some products DE, like, but it's not as common as dairy. Yeah, do it. Yeah. Also, as I travel to different places, different regions, the people's personality change also. People in upstate New York are very laid back, they're very chilled. They talk to you about their business. New York or New Jersey, they're very, they'll talk to you, but it's very, they don't reveal too much, more close. It's interesting to see how things shift.
Yeah, upstate is definitely very.
Different world,
better.
different world.
If you have a business that only deals with like cold products, like nothing hot,
Right.
the hatcher obviously is like easier because you're only using cold.
So then we need to make sure they have good cleaning procedures between products, which they should have if they're a good quality company. And then we have to certify products correctly. So the parv product should be labeled parv and the dairy, that's what we do by repacking companies. If the repackers, it's all cold. You have to make sure that the labels are all accurate, ingredients are accurate, but the kalim, the equipment itself, just has to be thoroughly cleaned in between. Sometimes repackers will do hot processing, like to do, let's say, oil roasting or dry roasting. That's another level of repacking. Sometimes they'll also put it into blenders. They'll have these blenders that could be jacketed, heated, but generally speaking, they're not using heated blenders on the repackers.
You also have to watch if they're using like lemon or lime and stuff like that.
Only if there's pressure involved, if there's a certain friction. Just cold repack of lemon lime would not be a problem, unless they're cutting it.
So that's what I mean, if you have like a product that uses like lemon
Yeah.
juice or something.
Yeah, and also there's always new things to learn in every industry. They're coming out with new processes. Years ago, I was visiting a fresh fish factory, and they were spraying the fish with a certain kind of a brine to try and keep it as fresh as possible. So for year round, it wasn't a question, but for Pesach, it was a question. So these are things we have to, be on the lookout for and be aware of. as much as possible. The craziest question I ever got was, Rabbi, where are your horns? You know that story, right? Yeah, that one takes the cake by far. Rabbi, where are your horns? Yeah.
It's crazy how people actually believe that.
Yeah, rabbis have interesting experiences when you travel. You know the story with the tefillin? I told you the story with the tefillin? One more story. This is a Geschmack story. Most of my mashkichim are the Bavasha Hasidim. So I told them that, and I have a lot of Jewish clients, probably 50% of the Jewish, maybe more. And I say that, take tefillin with you on the visits. Try to get the contact to put on tefillin. So I have one customer, a Jewish fellow, Israeli fellow actually, but he was a fabisna person. He was a bitter meaning, no, he was not a bitter person per se, personality-wise, but he had experiences from people maybe in Israel he had some kind of aftertaste that was not positive. I don't know why. And I said to him, it's going to be different with us. Give me a chance. And we developed a very warm relationship. For 10 years, I kid you not, on a monthly basis, our mashgiach would ask him if he put on tefillin, and he accepted the question and he politely said no. 10 years. It's over 100 times because we do it, on a monthly basis. 10 times 12. And then after 10 years, I'm there with him, with my mashgiach. I'm doing an annual visit. I go once a year. And we ask him the question, will you put on tefillin? And he says, yes. I whip out that tefillin as fast as I can. We wrap him up, Shema. I didn't want to ask any questions. I'm like, we seize the opportunity. After I'm done, I said to the guy, thank you, it's wonderful. Mazel tov. Can you tell us what's going on? We asked you to do this for 10 years. He says, Rabbi, let me tell you a story. He says, he's been trying to get his product into a certain store. And he has not had no success. So he says, one day, he's been like courting this buyer. The buyer calls him up and says, we want to take your product. Huge piece of business. He had to add a whole new shift of production, massive piece of business, great news for him. And he's like, now he has to ship product to the West Coast. Things are happening. Exactly at that moment, his son-in-law and daughter and son-in-law who live on the West Coast, they have 2 kids. His son-in-law loses his job. So as a good father-in-law, he flies out there to be with his daughter, and son-in-law says, listen, I'm gonna, don't worry, I'll support you until you get back on your feet. He said, well, it's a fellow, but also a good father, good grandfather. He said, I'll support you until you get on your feet. And then he comes back to New York. He spent a few days in California just to give them some time to kind of deal with this new reality and the shell shock. He says, wait a second. I have a new piece of business going to California. I need some logistics on the ground there. Let me hire my son-in-law. So he rents a warehouse, buys a used truck. His son-in-law's like basically taking care of the warehouse. They start doing distribution on the West Coast, and everything fits into place. He says to me, this is his words to me, he says, Rabbi, for 10 years, I'm trying to get this piece of business. All of a sudden, my competitor messes up, and the buyer calls me and wants my business. Exactly that moment, my son-in-law loses his job, and exactly that moment, I need someone to run my warehouse in California, exactly where he lives, and it all fits together like a puzzle. He says, a human being could not orchestrate all these events. It's impossible. God did it. I'm ready to put on tefillin. So he had a gilui of neshama. His neshama came out. All the dust was, his neshama was right there. Push it. And I put a mezuzah by his door. It's all from the Rebbe, because the Rebbe taught us, he really wants to put on tefillin. Just have to get to that nekudas hayadus. It was a Geschmack story. And he loves Chabad, this fellow. This fellow had another story. He's an older fellow now. His wife needed a bracha for refuah. She called the same mashgiach. She said, Rabbi, can you please pray for me? I'm going for an operation. He went to the oil. She had a nest. She knows it's from the Rebbe. And they told him to come down to their house to put up a mezuzah also. It's all hashpah from the Rebbe. We have to go and do our avodah. Sometimes it takes a few years till you get that the break, but it comes through. It's unbelievable. And yeah, there's many stories like that, but that one is a special one. Okay, we fabring today. Hope I don't get into any trouble.
Wait, I have one more question.
puree them, it's fine. Yeah, wash them, yeah.
Why is that?
Because the problem with the strawberries is the bud. If it's pureed, it's not gonna be whole. A bud that's unwhole is gonna be batal b'shishim, nullified 1 in 60.
So I do bartending and I muddle strawberries. So instead of muddling the strawberries, I should puree the strawberries beforehand and then it'll be.
Thank you. Yeah, that's fine.
I muddle it in the cup.
And it's gonna become pureed, it's fine. Yeah.
Wow.
It's better to wash it first, though. That's it's appropriate. Yeah, yeah.
I rub a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, it's good, yeah.
That's why I rubbed it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it makes me feel better. And I wasn't like.
Hashem, you see that? No, no, no. Pureed is fine. That's why it depends how it's used. Puree it or finely chopped.
I use a muddle, but I find like color.
Counting on it?
Yeah, I think it was.
This is fine.